Well, welcome to Level 3, Lesson 1. And as always, everything that we're going to be talking about today is for educational purposes only, and nothing is intended as any type of investment advice. All right, so we're going to start off today with our student teaching. What we're going to be talking about is just, everything that we've been doing over these past two classes regarding possibilities and personalities once we get some prints. All right, so first up is Davis.
Test, test.
Hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. I think if I'm still on here at 9:30, or maybe whoever's on here at 9:30, we might get a trade station bell right in your ear. So
Hmm.
if you're not awake already, that'll help.
All right, so
Not
what are we
seeing a lot
looking at
going
so
on.
far?
Yeah, you know, nothing. OKYO was on the list. NVAX had earnings. I think it took a hit. And I know you have that one up. ONCS is, you know, up in what could be a money time day, but nothing really to go on there. It had some decent prints at 230. Personality, I guess personality has a couple comments you could make on it. Another one of the market stocks that I have up is Apple,
Okay.
and I have Apple up because 148 and 149 had above print personality ask prints yesterday. Um, trended back down after it hit those. So just looking for potential so far.
Okay. Yeah, this isn't exactly one of those mornings where we have a million things up by any means. So at the moment, really just, as we talked about, there's really not much. It's more along the lines of finding something, like you just said, that has the potential.
And Tesla's another one that I keep up, or actually just started keeping up because of the couple weeks that we've had here. And I like having that up on the side list because if nothing else stands out, if nothing else gets active immediately, and there's nothing that really is better than it, it gives Tesla time to print maybe at a couple of levels. I've noticed that Tesla doesn't print these overwhelming above print personality 99s and at the level. It doesn't do that at the 50s. So, let's say the market opens up and this hits 207 ask. I would really feel like I had until 208 and see what it does there. If it prints 208 ask again, then it sort of qualifies for me to be looking at it. But I do wait for it to hit a couple of levels.
Okay.
Um, so I like having that as kind of a plan B. Certainly would like something cheaper and um, a little more in line with my trading.
Makes sense. I really like Tesla. I think it usually trades very well.
Yeah, and it's often the only one that's active. Even if it's a very slow day out there, it's trading 300,000, getting
Hmm.
prints at the levels. So
I'm just doing a little scanning on the side as well as we get closer to the open. We have 4 minutes. Just to see if anything really stands out there. Might want to keep KSS on your side list as well. They're not great, but it's got some decent selling that we've seen coming into that 25.75. You can see 26. Not terrible. Definitely has potential. If we go back, you can see it typically doesn't trade at all during the pre-market. So with this much interest, we should see a lot more out of it today than what we typically see.
I have not seen much in OKYO since it pulled back to the 220. There's virtually nothing at 250, but that doesn't mean at open it doesn't move and sort of set something up.
Yep, we would just need something that's, to show an actual trade at the moment.
Yeah, completely, essentially a completely new story, but that
Hmm.
volume spike that Doug had called out, and certainly the movement there gave it some potential.
No question.
Something like, yeah, KSS is kind of in a, maybe could be talked about the same way, but something like ONCS, I know how ugly and bad it looks here, but it does have 11 million or nearly 12 million traded. It doesn't look like um, it was so actively traded in the morning that we would immediately expect, okay, this is going to go to 250 or it's going to just get sold off, as we talked about in classes yesterday for those
Hmm.
pre-market runners that kind of sell off. So while there's nothing here, falls into that same category that let's see what open brings.
Yeah, it's definitely got potential. Like we said, it didn't have that push where it was like, it made it just like it was trading during the market open, during the pre-market. So it's definitely there. We would just need to see a lot.
All right, we're about half a minute away here.
Mhm.
See if I can bring the chat up. OKYO did go to 3. It had got one print there. Um,
Okay, OKYO.
yeah, there's nothing that I would be able to do there.
Yeah, it's one lonely print. So talk us through a little bit just what's going through your mind at the moment.
I call it letting the offense get set. Right now, I don't even know what offense we're running, or what we'd be trying to do, what teams are even on the court. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. KSS, those 2690s. I'm really just looking for a burst of color to bring my attention to it, and then I would see if the volume, um, sort of check the chart, and by chart I mean volume, sort of where it is in its morning. Don't want the first trade of the day to really be, and this is something I've gotten a lot better with, but I want the first trade of the day to be something that is not only high percentage, but that I've got a good handle on, a good idea of.
Okay, that's smart. I mean, there's no rush right now whatsoever. It's market's 2 minutes in. Especially, it's not like we were going into the market with a game plan. We didn't have, really personalities or stories because there was really nothing there. So it's almost like right now is the development of the pre-market before you really are going to start to trade.
And sometimes I wonder if I used to do this where you get a little bit of information and then you sort of expand it because there's nothing else out there. You expand it by comparison. And I've done a good job of getting that out of my system. Just looking for something that stands out.
Yep, we got to let the trade come to you, not try to, project things that basically aren't there.
Yep. Tesla is pushing down to this 205.
Coin just had some real nice 65 bids.
Yeah, it did. You want to use that?
It's up to you. What are you doing, Tesla or coin?
I didn't see anything at 205. So right now, coin's top of the list. Let me pull that up to the main. So 65 bids there, not much of a reaction. The volume's not great for the first 3-4 minutes, but that doesn't mean that it picks up or stays steady around this 200 level.
Yeah, and just if you could look and see my screen, just to show you, there are a couple bids at 66 too.
Okay,
A couple,
great.
I mean,
Thank you.
four.
Yeah. And
So you have all
so
the
in this
info.
scenario, I'm not going to chase this down. I would be looking for a potential bottom fishing number 3, but you would need to see that change of personality, or not change of personality, for the substance to change, buying to start coming into it. Nice thing
Hmm.
about coin is it's trading in 50-cent increments, and we know it can move. It moved $10 the other day, and I don't think I even noticed. We looked at it during a TE or something. So it certainly has the range. Does have a couple print lines above here to compete with.
What would you say its personality is so far?
I would say it's getting bullied down.
Okay.
Sort of an exception, but again, given the great range that it can have, it's not truly an exception. It's exception light.
Mhm.
I would probably have an order at 71, 64, 71, just to be
Mhm.
prepared in case information comes in.
Okay.
Looking at 64 on the matrix just to see if it had loaded up. It kind of jumped down there. So when it does that, it goes 66, 65, 64.50, had a few, and now there's very little there at 64. I would move that order down just a bit. I would actually be following this down maybe to 64.30. I would say that this is an exception at this point. Another dollar and change to the downside, just kind of getting pushed down into the ground.
So the one thing about calling it as its personality an exception right now, is there really substance to make it that to show that this should be continuing down? So is
Yeah,
it actually an exception yet, or is it really just movement and almost unjustified movement?
yeah, and that's actually a conversation. We could get into it now if you want, but that's an interesting conversation because I've had that thought before. Does this qualify as an exception? An exception to the rules? If you're looking at it level by level as if it has to follow immediately, then perhaps. But it's not out of character. You know, it's not something that I would look at and say, well, this just has no rhyme or reason to what it's doing.
Because when I look
Um,
at something being an exception, I'm going to look at the ability, for it to actually do what it's saying it's supposed to do. So when we come into 65, I haven't seen any real selling that's showing continuation. So I'm looking at this not as an exception, but more as something that's getting far away from where it needs to be.
okay, yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm
good point.
looking for that return movement rather than a continuation of that, of it, continuing to move down based off of, again, not really having substance there. When you have a stock that has that big of a range and the market just opened, you have thinner prints out there because volume's not that great, it's going to make big moves. We understand that. But see, an exception is something that they're just not following rules today. For instance, they're coming in and today we're just going to make the stock go down. We're going to see tons of off level coming in there, but is there justification for why the stock's doing that?
So that's
Rather
just
than,
it's
again,
not an exception move down, it's an extended move down.
exactly. And that's the difference between getting far away and looking for that trade back to the upside, which just
Yeah.
so beautifully happened,
Yep.
versus not being able to look for that pullback.
Yeah. And so frankly, if I'm hawking on this the way that we had been, I'd be in somewhere around the 64.50. The volume is waning, but
So
this
you
has all the potential in the world.
64.50, you'd be in somewhere up here.
Well, below the 64.50, I would think.
Yeah, I would think somewhere right in this area of 64. No,
Yeah, would you have it at 64.16? Because I
well,
saw a little bit in the like tens and teens come in,
yeah.
and it
So
was
we're
just
pushing
the
on to
price action.
63.50. Or 63.50. You probably would have had your order somewhere right underneath 64 or right above 64, somewhere right in that
Yeah,
spot.
right above 64, I would think 64.20 or so.
But
And so,
we get this
yep.
question all the time, especially in Traders Exchange, where people say, well, the market just opened. How do I understand personality? And this really was just one of the, a perfect example of understanding how the prints were actually working in comparison to what the chart was looking at. Because this is going to happen all the time. If we would have actually been seeing that selling coming in, this stock could have just continued and actually been that exception versus it just setting us up for a perfect trade because there's no reason for it to be down there. It was just getting far away. So I just want to really point that out because this is this is how we take and find personalities within the first few minutes is based off of those prints and how the movement is reacting towards those.
Sure. And a couple of things that I would point out in the trade is the way that it respected the 63.50. It had already printed at the 65, and we also have the print lines at the 65. On waning volume, I would manage that trade quite a bit at 65, knowing one, that's our market maker level, but two, that it's not waxing volume. It's not going to overpower that 65 level on the way back up.
I agree. I definitely agree it's going to be managed, but I also do know that at 66, okay, it makes a little bit more sense. So in this spot, would it be a terrible idea to look to add after the reaction from that 65?
No, especially because I still feel like this has information to give.
Mm-hmm.
I just still very much feel like the offense is getting set, and we could get 65 ask or trade within a trade prints at any point that tells us 66 is a clear go.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Just something to look at. When we're coming up to that 66, you're right. The volume is starting to wane down. It's going to be harder to break, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have the room. That just means the chart's going to look different in that spot. So if we were to get some off-level prints, or anything like that, then this is a spot that we could be looking. We still have, a pullback from 65 underneath. You're talking about almost $1.50. You still have towards that upside.
Yep.
again, warranted that the prints are coming in. And we can see that it's definitely the selling started to die as it was coming down to that 63.50.
Yep.
And at this point, we're definitely seeing a little bit more buying coming in, but it's not great either. We want to see something, especially
Yep.
considering the fact that the 66 were bids, not ask. It's not like we need to go higher than 66. And there was
The
only four of
best thing going for its personality is the ranginess at this point.
them. But definitely.
And
So
so
if you were going to
knowing
be
that,
managing at that 65, how much do you think you would have managed?
first trade of the day, at least 50%, probably 60%.
Okay. Perfectly fine with that.
60%. It comes back under that print line. I'd be down to 20, and then when it comes back down to effectively this
Yeah, pretty much where it's at right
approaches the
now.
entry, I'm probably out.
hmm Okay.
No reason to be in it if there's going to be a better entry. But knowing that the personality is rangy and that we do have some controlling prints coming into this, not just today but recently, um, when this price action gets a little tighter and there's not so much going on, it's one that would stay up on the screen. I would continue to watch this now, and will, but even later in the morning
Yeah, I
might be
mean,
one
coins,
where
one of
that.
the stocks I watch almost, I watch every day. I mean, it typically has got a big range and it trades pretty well. I mean, not for nothing, but this followed the rules pretty damn well, didn't it?
Yeah, the number three was pretty easy. That ONCS is woke up quite a bit.
All right, so you want to switch over?
Yeah, let's see if I got any prints here.
Oh, let's go on with the keyboard. There we go. All
Looks like
right.
scattered buying. See where this
Let's
starts.
see. Anything good at 250?
A little bit in the 60s, but it's very scattered everywhere. 260 was nice. 250 looks like it was kind of piecemealed out there.
Yeah, I didn't see anything I really liked too much.
Kind of what was expected, though. Coming up, I guess, when's that from? Last night after hours,
Mm-hmm.
gets that boost, comes up, kind of does a shoddy job of building or whatever that was in the pre-market. And now a lot of this, it goes into what you were saying. Are these prints, are these new position prints, or are they just moving this higher, to be able to maximize on what has been done over the last, whatever it is, 18 hours? And that's what I would
Mm-hmm.
classify most of this buying as. Certainly it's new buying and it will take this stock higher, but is it a new position that we can follow? I haven't seen that yet. 260 again, though. So
It's going to take a whole lot of volume to move this thing.
that said, when the stocks open up now, it had 1 million on the first bar, but it comes down all the way to 250,000. And then they fly in with 500, 750, 1 million, 1,500,000 in volume. Um, I would have to be watching it to make this assertion, but that late kind of few minutes into open when the volume flies in like that can sometimes give a money flow trade, for lack of a better explanation. God, KSS just doesn't like to print at levels, does it?
It doesn't seem so. See, this is like, a little bit different than what we were. Well, not really that different, but we did get some prints that came in earlier to push it. But see how this is acting a lot more as an exception at this point. Now, it hasn't really given great prints for us to, but it's actually getting buying that was pushing it up before.
Yeah.
So when I'm looking at something like this, I'm looking at its personality is showing smaller pullbacks. Then I'm looking at, for the entire pullback, that all at once type pullback like we just saw in coin. This doesn't have that same personality that coin did.
Yep. Coin did just hit 66. Nothing there, but I mean that was textbook.
That would have been, our spot to add.
So with the 65 bids, we know that it's rangy. We don't really have, there's a couple decent bursts in there, but I don't see new positions that are taking this that would tell us that this really wants to go above the 66. So with 65 bids there, I guess I have a question. I would still consider the 65 bids to be in play, but it did come down to 63.50. So perhaps
No, because those 65 bids never actually got a chance to be able to
build.
Yeah, to build. On top of the fact, did you ever see them get out? Did they ever have a spot where there was even any type of larger buying as it came into that 63.50?
Down at the bottom, no.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with exactly what they told me, is that they're looking to build from that 65 and from that 66. Now, 66 a lot more short term. So now we have to start thinking like, where do we have any buying coming into this to continue it? The best prints that we've had so far above here was those 66.30 S, but if you look, you could see the selling starting to come out of it.
And those are 65.30. So
excuse me, yes, 65.30.
So those I could basically cross off. That 66.31 selling is helpful, and we're coming up to an orb line here. So 66.59, enough to push it right at print personality. What is it, 50 cents? I would not give that 59.50 cents. Yeah, knowing how true to the levels that this has played, looking at an orb line or the 67 level for a potential number 2 trade with a rangy move right back to our market maker at 65.
Yep, and that's an easy price target because we know we're going to go right back to where that market maker was.
So I'd probably have this order at a 21, 66, 21, maybe 19. Same thing.
All right, Davis. Well, good job. I think we got some really good insights. The first lesson, just, kind of what an exception really means versus getting too far away from where it needs to go back to. Just, being able to determine the difference in that is the difference between, thinking that there's not pull-ups and missing just a phenomenal, first few minute trade. I mean, it doesn't get much easier than that, does it?